Good morning. We are here for our daily drop-in here at the Teach Better team, happening every single Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern, live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. My name is Ray Hughart, and I'm really excited that I have Brad Hughes again with me. Hey, Brad, how you doing?
Ray, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me back. It's exciting to be here on the Daily Drop-In.
Oh, we're so excited. We have a lot in store for all of you. So please feel free, as usual, to be starting us off with good morning messages. Share where you're watching from in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Obviously, for the entire daily drop-in today, we're going to continue along with that weekly theme we've been having. This week is all about communication, and we have some surprises in store as well. So we'll be right back. Good morning. Good morning. Brad, you are just so wonderful. You're not only joining us for Daily Drop-In for a second time, but the following week, next week, you're going to be just a typical host of the show, which we are so excited for. And shout out to whatever tech issue you just had, because you just killed it popping back in. So we're thrilled that you're here and you are an all-star.
I Teach Better team and Ray Hughart make me feel like an all-star. I mean, providing opportunities for me to have fun, connect, a weekly opportunity to be on a morning show is kind of like a dream come true. So you're making my life here, Ray Hughart. It's wonderful.
I am thrilled to be a part of it. I do want to celebrate all of you listening. We're so thrilled that you're here live, or even if you're listening after the fact on Teach Better Talk podcast. We want to start out with a big morning cheers, saying that we hope you have a wonderful day. We're so excited that you're here starting your morning with us. Feel free to utilize our comments, our entire stream to support you. The Daily Drop-In was actually started back in 2020, March of 2020, when the entire world was changing due to the global pandemic. And the goal of Daily Drop-In was just to be around in case you needed anything. And that's what it continues to be. So good morning to all of you here. I am so thrilled to see some of you are currently making your coffee, grabbing your coffee. Maybe you're getting dressed or brushing your teeth for the day. I know it's Wednesday, big day ahead. Brad, a lot of schools have started, and this is like a big week if you're getting ready for school. Where are you at in your school beginning and everything like that?
Really big week, Ray. And right now, our teachers in Ontario, where I am working, are still on summer holiday. But you've heard it said that July is the Saturday of the summer, and August is the Sunday. And so I know that teachers and educators all over the place are anticipating that return. Some may have already been into school to check on their classroom, get things ready. I know our custodial and facility staff has been really busy all summer, just making the school look as awesome as it can be. And so principals and administrative staff are back in schools next Wednesday to help get things up and running. Probably answering a lot of phone calls from parents about the status of the school. Are we open? Are we closed? Are classes ready? That kind of a thing. And then we'll start to welcome our staff members back and kick off the school year with fun and excitement.
Oh, I cannot wait. This is such a wonderful time of year. I was chatting with a few educators yesterday, and truly, regardless of the type of where you are in the world, everybody starts at different times, it seems like, for the back to school system. And it's so exciting to see that starting, because there's so much creativity that is all over the internet right now of educators sharing their voice, sharing the work they're doing, sharing their classroom with other teachers, but also with their community. It's such an exciting time. I love this season. It's so fun.
It is the most wonderful time of the year, and it's an incredible mixture of positive anticipation, but also managing your own energy and emotions around just the stresses and concerns about what it means to welcome a group of young people and to welcome an entire school back, especially when a lot of these young people haven't been in schools for maybe close to 2 calendar years. And it's a real opportunity, but it's also a huge responsibility. So my my huge congratulations and my huge esteem and empathy to all educators, no matter where you are, getting things up and ready to welcome your kids.
Oh, I'm so excited. I get to travel a little bit today. I'm doing daily drop-in, and then I'm going to do a little bit of prep and jump on the road. I'm going about 3.5 hours southwest to a school district that has their Institute Day today, and they're concluding their Institute Day with some fun that I'm thrilled to be a part of. So I love being able to see educators excited to be back and be a part of any small part of that. I'm so stoked to drive over there and go celebrate with them. It should be a great time. Do you have any big to-dos today that's on your list, Brad? I know you have a very important role. I want to get into that as well, just in case people aren't aware of your role. Do you mind telling us, first of all, a little about anything you have going on today, but also then what you do in terms of your title in education?
Absolutely. I'm a school principal, elementary school principal in Waterloo Region, Ontario, Canada. Right now, we're on vacation. We have an RV that we keep year-round right at Lake Huron. And so it's an awesome spot close to the beach. And we're welcoming my son and daughter for a few days today. I've got a son who's 21 and a daughter who's 19. So they're doing their own things back at home in Waterloo. And so they're coming up to visit for a few days. And so that's the exciting part of my day, and just kind of reconnecting with them and getting all of our traditional family activities back up and running for a few days. So that's where I'm at. I'm looking for, this is an amazing way to start the day. I look forward to connecting with you personally and connecting with all of our viewers and listeners. And this is just an amazing way to start my day.
Oh, that's a huge celebration, Brad. I'm so excited to get to hang out with the kids today. That'll be so fun. We're going to transition here to our good news segment, where we are able to share good news with each and every one of you every single morning to not only kick off your day with some fun, but also utilize it in your classroom to communicate, to build a relationship with colleagues. We have a little bit of a new element today that we're going to add in thanks to Rachel on the Teach Better team. So we'll be right back. I love our good news segment. All of you guys know that we have a good news segment every single morning just to start your morning off with some wonderful, wonderful details of the things going on in the world. And then obviously using it not only to build you up, but to possibly build others up or foster deep discussion. Brad, I know that you have the good news story ready for us today. Before we get to that, I do want to address one of the comments. Alex in the chat is asking if you have matching t-shirts. Is that a thing in your family?
We do not have matching family t-shirts, no, except when we head to Walt Disney World. That is one of the opportunities when we have or have had matching t-shirts. But no, Alex, I haven't dipped into the Teach Better closet for my family yet. I think that would be a tough sell, although they all live the Teach Better mindset, better today, better tomorrow. But I think that would be a tough sell for my kids, especially.
I love it. Yeah, for those of you watching on Teach Better Talk podcast after the fact, I will give a big shout out to you, Brad. You have some epic Teach Better swag on right now. I love that shirt.
I love it too. I love the swag shop, and I love the positive conversation that it sparks when I'm out and about, just showing off my Teach Better swag.
Well, and I will tell you, Brad, it's obviously great to celebrate all the good swag in the world, right? Especially when it encourages us to be better. But today is something special that I want to highlight. It's not National Swag Day, although I really wish it was, because you'd be killing it. It's actually something even more important. I find this to be an essential holiday that I want to make sure that we celebrate, because every single morning, along with our good news segment, we're going to start highlighting the special holidays in our lives. And this one is definitely one to kick off this element of our good news story. Brad, are you celebrating today's national holiday?
I certainly will be. I'm grateful that I'm in a spot where I have easy access to a campfire. I've got people to celebrate with, and I have the raw materials needed right in the pantry.
I love it. Hey, everybody. Today, I want to celebrate. Today is National S'mores Day. We are very excited to be celebrating with you for National S'mores Day. And while we will be celebrating all the goofy holidays that our world has, I think that all of you should take on the challenge of eating a s'more today. What's in a s'more? A classic s'more is graham cracker, chocolate, and marshmallow. Is that it? Is there anything else in there?
No, that's it. That's the classic version, and then every family that I know might have a little bit of a variation. Like, so our variation is we make a s'more between two chocolate chip cookies, or if we, the chocolate chips get all melty and it's pretty tasty. The other thing we've done is in Canada, we've got a candy bar called Caramilk, and I'm not sure if you've got the same candy bar or something similar in the U.S., but it's milk chocolate with pockets of caramel, like liquid caramel inside. And when those caramilks melt, and you've got this marshmallowy, caramely, chocolatey goodness between your graham crackers, it's pretty special.
That sounds amazing. I also love, Joe's adding in that he loves dark chocolate and also Reese's peanut butter cup in a s'more. That is never a bad thing.
All things Reese's, that's my jam. I love it.
Well, as you all continue with your wonderful Wednesday, it's August 11th today, 2021. We would love to give you an excuse to add some sweetness to your day. So at some point today, find a marshmallow, make a s'more. I think that would be a good life goal today. I have none of those raw materials in my house, but like I said, I'm going to be on the road later today. Maybe I'll stop at a grocery store. Brad, I'm jealous that you already have all those resources at hand. I hope you post a picture later of your s'more.
I will. And for those who are looking for a quick fix, rumor has it you can even get s'mores cereal with those golden grahams and the marshmallows and the chocolate puffs. And so if you want to make a quick trip by the grocery store, you don't have time, you don't have access to like a campfire or a stovetop burner, get yourself some of those s'more crunch, pour them in a bowl, and actually you can bring it back to the Daily Drop-In tomorrow. You can pour your bowl and you can toast with your s'more cereal tomorrow.
I love it. We'd love to have you toast your s'more cereal tomorrow. And obviously we'll be updating you on big holidays tomorrow. I'm previewing it right now. And I will tell you, it has a very special place in my heart. So I'm very excited for tomorrow. Brad, you brought our good news segment for this morning. So I'm just going to sit back and sip on my coffee and let you bring all the good news to me.
Ray, thanks. And as you know, I love to play. And the story I've chosen today comes from happynews.com. And at the end of the segment, I'll pop the link into our comment stream so people can have a look. Highlighting a toy shop that creates a safe space for children with autism. In communities, you might have, say, grocery stores, or you might have other movie theaters that are creating safer spaces, more comforting spaces for those with sensory needs. And this My Small World toy shop is a toy shop in Bath, England, doing big things for the customers with autism as well as the parents of children with autism by creating a friendly play space. The music is turned down, the lights are turned down, and people know that the shop is welcoming folks with all kinds of interests, all kinds of strengths, and all kinds of needs as well. One parent of an autistic child writes, "You worry at the time what people are thinking of your child because you know that they're not naughty. They're just being themselves, and sometimes in a store setting they can become overwhelmed." And so this shop is, welcoming families of children with autism. One thing that I think is fantastic about this story is that it normalizes it and makes neurodiversity part of the community conversation. And as people visit the toy shop with their kids, whether they're neurodiverse or not, they see people in the community doing something tangible that's making a difference, and maybe a difference that no one has ever tried to make for families with kids of autism like that. So I love seeing opportunities like that in different communities to make spaces more inclusive and welcoming. And I wonder, in terms of framing this for kids, if you could ask kids to think about examples in their community where the spaces or the routines or something has changed to make it even more welcoming. And then you can look inwards and say, is there anything in our classroom that we could do, anything in our school community that we could do to make it even more inclusive, welcoming, and safe for everybody?
Oh, what a powerful story. And I love the transition you took there of then how to bring that to your students or to your colleagues or to your staff, depending on your role in education. I mean, that's the point of these good news stories, is not only to obviously celebrate the wonderful things going on in the world, but also to then utilize that power of good news to build further, a further impact. And so I would love to hear in the comments if you live in a community that has something like this, that that creates an intentional welcoming space to any type of person. We'd love to see those in the comments and give them a special shout out here on the Daily Drop-In. Brad, I know that you had a very busy day yesterday, and I don't believe made it to our administrative mastermind. But yesterday we had a conversation for an entire hour in the Teach Better Team Admin Mastermind about creating safe spaces. It's really funny that you just brought this up. And the dialogue was all about striving to ensure that regardless of your school building, regardless of your community, that you are being inclusive. And there was a lot of dialogue around creating safe spaces, or how we celebrate certain holidays, or how you speak to certain groups about other groups of people. And it was a really healthy dialogue that I didn't expect for August, beginning of the year. But that was the way our conversation went in the evening mastermind. It was very, very interesting. Good insights shared there.
Sounds amazing, and I'm sorry that I missed that. What I will say is that I think it really speaks to the commitment of those in that mastermind to put first things first in terms of the foundation of a positive school year is just checking your environment for opportunities to continue to improve the way you make all community members feel welcome, whether they are parents and caregivers, your staff members and educators, any visitors to your building, anyone that works in your district, your facility staff, your postal carrier. What does it mean, and what does it feel like to step into your building and to know that you're welcome? It's something that, in my experience, and people have reflected on the school environment that I serve and that I work in. It's something that you can actually feel. There's a sense of calm, a sense of welcoming, and there's also a sense of striving just to do a little bit better each day, and sort of, you have kind of radar turned on all the time to checking for opportunities to make your space even more welcoming. Who might not be being served, who might be being underserved or underrepresented, and just making sure you've got clear communication between all your stakeholders and the people in the building, and especially the kids. How can we make these spaces work better for them?
We have so many wonderful comments coming in of people giving a shout out to their schools or other things in their community that are celebrating all different types of people. Lindsay says we have a sensory-friendly movie times, and I love it. They also have play museums, specific times for families that they might need those accommodations. I love that. Rachel is popping in and saying creative, inclusive, safe spaces may seem overwhelming because there are so many people and backgrounds to keep in mind, which actually was the conversation in Mastermind, is how do you keep every perspective in mind? But Rachel adds in, but it truly just starts with building positive relationships, focusing on always growing and learning. I couldn't agree more. She also adds in here, involving kids in the process is really important. Brad, I know that your background is not only in serving students constantly, but right now you're in an elementary setting. I can only imagine that the environment that the students are in, like their physical environment, has a dramatic effect on what types of moods the students are in and how successful they are. Can you tell me a little bit about what autonomy your teachers have in kind of like creating those spaces within your building?
They have a lot of autonomy, Ray, and one thing that we're trying to promote and build awareness of, actually two things with our educators annually, and as we take a look at this year. Number one is to keep it simple. You've got full autonomy to create the learning space that works for you and for your kids. We're continuing to work within some COVID-19 protocols, including rows and desks facing forward and that kind of a thing. But within that, it's your canvas to create a space that you as an educator look forward to walking into every day, and creating that space that the kids are going to look forward to walking into every day. And the educators that I serve, and I know that there are millions of them that I've seen them on different social media, just taking such pride and such care in creating those spaces. And it's important to make sure that it's a space that educators feel that they look forward to coming into, because that's where the art, and that's where the art of teaching and the excitement of teaching comes together. So what we're also promoting is to try to keep things simple. We know that visual clutter can be heightening for kids, especially kids with sensory needs or neurodiversity. And so it's also okay to allow that canvas of your classroom to evolve over the school year. There are countless educators that go all out for the start of the school year to make sure that their space is as inviting, welcoming, and just pops of color and just incredible environments. But it's also okay to take a different tack and to allow that canvas to take shape gradually, involving the kids, for example, or responding to the kids' needs. It can be a masterpiece that evolves over the length of a school year. But making that space inviting for you as an educator, you can't underestimate that, because that's going to impact how you feel. That's going to impact your feelings and emotions. It's going to impact about, we are what we do. And when we inhabit these spaces, we want to make sure that they are energizing us as educators as well. So go with what you love.
Yeah, Brad, I want to transition this. My next question to you was going to be, how then we communicate that we have these spaces. This theme this week is all around communication. So we're going to shift here to our brainstorm bank and get brainstorming here with all of you. All right, you guys already know how this works. You can head over to teachbetter.com/brainstormbank and share a question with us at any point in time throughout your day. We just opened up that space to simply allow for you to submit questions throughout your day that you want to make sure is discussed on Daily Drop-In. Obviously, if you're here live with us, you can share your comments constantly in the chat so that we will do our best to try and address them as frequently as possible. Brad, we were just discussing, creating these spaces, these inclusive spaces for our students. And I really appreciate that you bringing up that there's still so much COVID protocol going on. I know a lot of educators that have a big passion in that physical space design could be struggling right now, because COVID does limit us with what we're able to do safely right now, which just is a reality of our world that we need to accept and brainstorm forward with. But the theme for this week has to do with communication. And I think communication about your physical space is a really important thing that we should be doing at the beginning of the year. We have students entering the building possibly for the first time, or at least for the first time in many years. We have parents that are anxiously eager to see what the school year is going to look like. And depending on the grade level, they might be trying to introduce themselves not only one teacher, but possibly, 8 to 10 teachers that are going to be in their child's life. And not only communicating the resources and the content they'll be using, but also better understanding the type of environment that their child is going to be in and spend their time in is essential. What are your thoughts on that communication element?
Oh, I've got lots of thoughts, Ray, and
I hope
you've just
so.
you've got my brain really going here. The first thing is that what families want to know first and foremost is, where do I go? Where do I stand? How do I get into the school? Just the basic logistics that, anything that you can provide to let families know where to go on the first day, what to expect. That's going to ease their mind. Anything that you can do to ease those worries and ease their mind is going to go a long way. It's a huge investment that you can do straight away as an educator to build those foundations of strong relationships. And then as questions come in that you might have overlooked, you might get the same question 4, 5, 6 times. That's a real clue that's communication that others are going to be seeking as well. So I encourage educators, as they're working out the nuts and bolts of the logistics, is welcome questions, and just make a commitment to continuing to clarify, even if you get the same question 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, Brian, I'm going to pause you there, because I think that's really important to emphasize. It actually goes along with your suggestion that you made last week, where we had a different theme we were discussing. But when you joined us for Daily Drop-In, you focused on finding measurables. How are you going to evaluate if we're meeting your goals? This is a perfect element of reflection, that as you're communicating, if you have an open door policy for questions, you're able to continuously reflect on if your communication is being effective based on the questions that you're receiving from your community. I know that I've joked plenty that when I communicate with parents, if I get the same question 2 to 3 times, then I know that whatever I'm communicating isn't effective, and I need to blast out that information, whether it be in a video or an email or a more prevalent place on a website. But if you're getting that question 2, 3 times, then something's not clicking. It doesn't mean that you failed in your ability to communicate,
So
but
true.
something isn't all the way, connected, I guess.
Yeah, it's easy to have a mindset of, or it's easy to shift to sort of diminishing yourself and beating yourself up if something falls flat. It's probably not you. And there's so much in our life that happens to us and around us that it's natural to take personally, because we take what we do so personally, so naturally. But it's probably not you. I'm just going to say that it's probably something outside of your control. And even if it is you, you've got it within your capacity to adapt. Not necessarily correct, but just adapt, shift, find what works. And I want to pick up on discussion that you and Katie had yesterday on Daily Drop In, and that was around finding ways of communication that work for you.
Yes.
And what I want to reassure, and what I reassure the educators that I work with is it's okay for you to set parameters around communication so that it works for you. The frequency, the mode of communication, whether it's like mostly online now with lack of paper shifting back and forth, but find what works for you and communicate it to your parents. But also leave a door open, either something that emerges that you discover that mode of communication isn't working for a certain family or a certain stakeholder. Then you can adapt, but it will likely work for most. And then it's a way of learning. You can put out there. Like I plan to have a monthly newsletter with photos of student work in the environment and different check-ins and see how that goes, and then get feedback from family, because it will probably work for most. But for the people that need more frequent communication because of, for example, student learning needs, or because maybe there are families that are in different households, you can adapt for those individuals, but it will probably work for most. But it's important to find something that works for you, and that's part of the autonomy you spoke about earlier, Ray. Is that each school may have different expectations around communication set by the school leader or set by the district. But that's my advice to the educators that I work with: is do what works for you, and then make changes to adapt your communication to meet individual needs.
Yes, I really appreciate that we finally got there in that dialogue yesterday with Katie Miglin. She was such a fun guest to have on the Daily Drop. I know she's joining us again next week on Monday. But that dialogue really was at the tail end of our conversation, trying to ensure that we were able to give a piece of advice. And she wanted to emphasize finding the type of communication that worked for you, and that being so important, because it kind of relates to I don't want to go on a tangent, but Adam Welcome and I wrote a book together called Teachers Deserve It. And his first book that he wrote, that we kind of like built off of, was Kids Deserve It, which it's a very popular book. I'm sure a lot of you have read it. And, we had this idea that, yes, kids do deserve it. There's no doubt. And the book has so many different things that we can be working on as educators. But we felt it was really important to collaborate and write Teachers Deserve It, because while kids deserve it, it shouldn't be at the demise of the educator. So as you're thinking about communication, yes, you are going to commit to communicating, and you're going to commit to communicating well and improving your practice and being better every single day in how you're communicating. However, don't do it without considering what also is going to serve you as a person, as an educator. Choosing a medium that works well for you, choosing a time frame that works well for you. Those are all really important elements of your communication style wholeheartedly. So I think that
so true. And it reminds me of our discussion a little bit earlier, Ray, about creating the classroom. I mean, your communication plan can be a canvas that evolves. And just as you said, it's essential that educators keep the sustainability in mind. And if you go along a path that you decide, or you discover isn't sustainable for whatever reason, you don't have the time, you don't have the energy, if you notice something becomes something that you have to do rather than what you want to do or looking forward to doing, it maybe needs to be changed. So if you've overstretched, it's okay to pull back, and sometimes it's helpful to clarify with stakeholders what the pullback is and why you're doing it. But sometimes it's not. Like, most people don't even, they won't notice a small change, but it might make a big impact on you as an educator. So give yourself that freedom and permission to change tactics, to change directions, to make sure that it's sustainable, and it'll be constantly a balancing, or as Lindsay Titus would say, constantly a blending act from day to day, from week to week. Just make sure we're all creating as we go. Education, like so many other walks of life, is at its heart a creative endeavor. And so as the creator, as the the conductor of the orchestra, or as the artist, as this canvas unfolds, you're creating as you go, and you have permission, and you have, I hope, the autonomy and the practical and emotional support from school leaders to make those changes as you see fit. Because if you tip the balance past what's sustainable, it's going to actually have the opposite effect. You're not going to be communicating effectively. You're going to approach burnout sooner. And so just keep things blended, and just keep things manageable, and make changes as needed.
Oh, such good advice, Brad. We have a lot of comments that are emphasizing and adding to what you've just shared. I'm going to pull a few here. Alex says, as a leader, you may be asked the same question 6 or 7 times, but it usually is coming from 6 or 7 different people who are all asking for the first time. He notes the importance of being very patient. That is
absolutely
a huge element of communication. Dave Schmitto, Dr. Dave Schmitto, jumping in here from the Teach Better team, says, Brad, I love this approach. Create a plan, then seek feedback. It's okay to start with a plan that works as long as you're fluid enough to adapt, which is such an important element for us to consider. I know that we're not going to be able to jump into all of these comments, although I love that you guys are filling up our chat right now. Alex poses a question saying, when seeking feedback, I try to look for those ideas, or for whose ideas are missing. Why didn't we get response from them? Brad, it's interesting because we first added this element of hearing from your essentially your audience, right? Hearing from your parents to understand their questions, but it actually is data in and of itself. If you don't hear from them, it could be data that you're communicating effectively, but it also could be data for something else. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that point there from Alex is key, and that circles back to how we started our conversation, Ray, about creating inclusive spaces, and we have to be asking who is being underserved, who is being underrepresented in terms of the responses we're getting. Because let's face it, I mean, I've had the following thought cross my mind. I keep, for example, you send out newsletters and you haven't heard from family Y or family X, and it's like, family X must not really care about what's happening in my classroom or what's happening with their kid because I haven't heard from them. The flip of it is actually true. The flip of it is, it's our responsibility to ask the questions that Alex is asking. Why aren't we hearing from that family yet? What could we do to engage them in a way that is different or more effective? Because if you believe that kids deserve it, and you believe that keeping a family informed and seeking information from a family to better serve your kids is worth it, then you have to ask that exact question that Alex did: is who's not being reached? Who am I not hearing from? And try to find out, not only make connection, but sort of ask that question, not necessarily why haven't I heard from you, but what could I do to make it possible for us to stay in better touch? Sometimes I find that for families who are learning English as an additional language, sometimes siblings or family friends who can converse easily in English with you, if English is your language of instruction or language of communication, just looking for other stakeholders that can assist communication, and you can actually find some really effective sort of workflows that facilitate communication in ways that may be unexpected. But if you figure out where the family is at, and the question you want to ask is, how can I make communication with you more frequently? Because I want to keep in close touch, because I know that we both want the very best for your kids. And when kids know that parents and educators are working as partners, they feel supported and they see that support as well. So a great observation from Alex. I couldn't agree with that more.
Oh, really, really good information. Brad, you made me nervous earlier today when you were noting that you were going to reference something that Katie and I talked about yesterday in Daily Drop-In. Because if any of you were with us, there was a big debate on certain things and how we say certain words. And so I just want to kind of confirm because I'm not going to be able to move forward with my day without hearing this from you. So I'm going to describe something, and I'm going to have you tell me what word I'm describing. Does that work for you?
Yeah, and as a Canadian, I may need to spell it because it might have extra vowels. So I'll just
Ugh.
make sure I respond appropriately to
You're
you.
just adding a whole new element to our conversation yesterday. And this is good for communication, right? No, I'm just kidding. It's actually useless. But let's go with this. If you were to go work out later today, what would you put on your feet?
I put sneakers.
Sneakers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. If you who lives very far away from me, we're gonna drive to my house on a fast road, what would you call that?
Highway. Because we don't have interstates in Canada, so I'd call it a highway. But when we cross the border, I know what an interstate is. So I'd get on, I'm not sure if I get on I-95 and go a little bit south and then zip west to Illinois. But yeah, highway.
There you go. Can you tell me if I was having a wonderful ice cream dessert and I wanted to put some hot chocolate on it, and then what else might I put on that is sweet?
Sprinkles, not Binkies or Jimmy's. Sprinkles. Yeah.
Okay, sprinkles, yes. I'm thinking of something I might drizzle on top that is kind of amber in color.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be caramel, not caramel.
No!
Caramel, yes. Now, way back when in the Teach Better drop-in, you were talking about first jobs, and there was either your guest or someone chimed in about how many people have first jobs at McDonald's, and that was me.
Yeah.
And I worked at McDonald's as a crew member, crew trainer, and manager for almost 10 years, and I can tell you that the menu item is hot caramel sundae, not hot caramel sundae, at least here in Ontario.
Terrible, terrible. All right, wait, what were some of the other ones? If you in the chat remember all these, hold on, what about something that you put on that keeps you warm and it has a hood?
Hoodie.
Okay, so I would call it a hoodie too. Okay, that's good. What I know there were at least two more. I just can't think of what they were.
Yeah.
But it was a very fun dialogue yesterday. If you missed that, you can always catch our episodes after we've gone live on all of our social media platforms that we stream to. Obviously, we're streaming every single morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But you can also obviously check out the episodes without the video and just an audio form as a Teach Better Talk episode of our podcast. I will give a shout out. We officially have a daily drop-in up at teachbetter.com. You can head to teachbetter.com/daily drop-in to not only learn about the show, but also submit your questions, participate, suggest guests to join us, and everything in between. Oh, I do remember another. Thank you to Megan Wells in the chat. Brad, what's the coloring tool that you use that's kind of waxy? It comes in a box with a lot of colors.
Those are crayons.
Oh, I'm sorry. What? One more time?
Crayons.
No, why?
Yeah, they're crayons, and when I'm coloring with crayons, especially if it's in the afternoon or evening, I enjoy an ice cold can of pop, not soda.
Nice job, Brad.
And it's if it's Coke in a can, that's great. But if it's not Coke, then you name what it is. It's Sprite is not Coke. That's the way we roll here. So
I'm so glad to hear you say that, Brad. That at least helps a little bit, because I still think that keynote I did in Arkansas was one of my favorite moments, embarrassing myself on stage talking to a lot of educators a few summers ago. It was so much fun. So much fun. Brad, there's so many questions that we're able to discuss during our Brainstorm Bank segment. And obviously, we love when people are sharing in the comments or when they're submitting their question over at teachbetter.com/brainstormbank. But I do have one more question from you that was posed to us from our network, which was an educator who was building an introduction grid. For those of you who are new to the Teach Better team, we do, kind of professional development for educators around the world. But one of the things we like to focus on a lot is a mastery learning framework. And this mastery learning framework that we're not really going to dive into for this segment, at least, unless you guys have specific questions, is focused on creating a self-paced classroom. And one of the elements that we suggest when utilizing this framework is to do kind of like an introduction unit to get your students practicing these new procedures and kind of shifting their mindset to ensure that they really understand that they, as students, have full autonomy over their learning. And the teacher is going to transition from a content delivery system to actually being a facilitator of that learning experience. This question specifically posed, was what to include in that introduction grid where the students are able to practice these procedures over and over. So the question I wanted to pose to you, and I apologize for that long backstory, was maybe to brainstorm a little bit with me as we're talking about communication. We're not only talking about communication to our stakeholders, but also communication to our students. And I'd love to kind of brainstorm and spitball, and especially those of you in the chat, I'd love you to participate. What are some things that you know you want to communicate to students the first week of school? And obviously the first week is arbitrary, right? But when your students come into your learning environment, what are the things that you want to communicate? And some of those things might be your grading policy. Some of those things might be, how your classroom operates day to day, those routines. But other things might include like how you sharpen a pencil or appropriate times to go to the bathroom. I mean, can we brainstorm some of those so that people working on this introduction unit can have, kind of a checklist to ensure that they used all of those?
Absolutely, Ray. And I'm not sure how this could actually be included in actually the foundation I want to talk about. I'm not sure how it would be included in a mastery grid, except in how it's presented. And that is, you want to attend to the affective domain first and foremost. You want to make sure that you're communicating with everything that you have and with everything with you that you are. You want to embody excitement, welcome, care, and belief in the kids. The number one thing you want to you need to communicate with all of your kids when you have them back is, you are so glad that they are there. You are excited to see them. You are wildly excited about what each and every one of them can bring to the classroom. You're looking forward to getting to know each of their strengths. You're excited for the privilege of helping them discover and address their needs and next steps. But that's not only what you say, but it's how you look. It's how you adjust your posture. It's how you adjust your facial expression with soft eyes and maybe a medium voice. The warmth and the tone of your voice and the timbre of your voice. And especially at first, take things slow, because I remember you're welcoming your class back for the first time. Maybe it's a brand new grade, or maybe it's a brand new school, and your heart is racing, and there's a lot of adrenaline for you, a lot of positive anticipation. So it's essential with the communication to slow things down, because the kids' heart rates and anticipation, excitement is also going to be very high. And when those heart rates are high and when the speech is fast, people are still attending to how they're feeling inside. They're not yet really attuned to listening. So that's the first thing, Ray, is to communicate that sense of excitement, hope, and welcome. Slow things down, and then as you introduce that mastery grid in terms of the class routines, you want to include the emotional state as well as the nuts and bolts of how to sharpen pencils and how to get around the classroom.
Well, and I think you're touching on an exceptionally important point, Brad, because we can list out all the procedures that we want to make sure our students learn, not only to support a mastery framework, but also to support the classroom. Holly Stewart just commented, and she'll be joining us for Daily Drop-In tomorrow. Holly, we're so excited to have you. But she jokes in here like, oh, how do you glue something into an interactive notebook? Like, that is an important routine and skill that you're going to want to share with students. But Brad, your focus on wanting to ensure that there's this overarching reminder, constant reminder that student has on the feeling of the classroom, it absolutely is essential to be building in, not only in the times where you're speaking, you reference tone of voice or body language, but the types of activities that you're going to have students do to practice some of those skills can be connected to that feeling, right? They could be gluing in something to the interactive notebook that's science related, and that's fine. They also could be practicing that skill, gluing in something that has to do with monitoring emotions or how to communicate effectively with classmates. There are ways that we can constantly be folding in learning experiences for our students that emphasizes our open-minded, welcoming demeanor in the classroom. And I think that that's a wonderful note to make as we are building our introduction sections for our students is not only what do we want to do, but how do we want to make them feel, and what are we actually trying to communicate? That's important.
Precisely. And the art of teaching, and when I've seen teaching at its best, it's about capitalizing on these moment to moment things that are happening to teach the skills or to illustrate how the way things are done in our classroom. And it's normal and understandable. And I've done this myself as a teacher, especially as a beginning teacher. You want to roll out the rules and expectations. You want to roll out the routines. You want to practice, practice, practice. We're going to practice walking in the hall. We're going to practice entering and leaving the classroom. We're going to practice the transition from say instruction to lunch. You can also allow those things to unfold and state your expectations and hopes really clearly, and provide feedback. And it comes back to that emerging canvas. It may not be a picture perfect canvas in the first block of the first day, but you've always got a foundation for feedback and for refinement and for improvement. And if you can weave, Ray, in that feedback, if you can weave a sense that, hey, we've got this, and setbacks are going to be a normal part of what we do here, and we're going to learn from and improve through setbacks. And so if you're correcting a student, or if you are redirecting a student, or if you're refining a procedure, you're communicating not only with what you say, but with what you do. Hey, we've got this. I know you've got this. It's our first time through. It's our second time through. But back to Alex's comment about 6 times the same question. It will take a student, it takes us many repeats of the same routine or procedure successfully until we lock it in. And as kids are excited as they come back inside from that first recess of seeing all of their friends and being active, and again, those heart rates are up, and they're going to be scattered, and you just have to be, I guess you just have to be patient. You have to be permissive, and you have to be just kind of, you meet them where they are at their energy level and kind of bring them back in together. But I see so many beautiful classrooms being shared on Instagram and other media, and what I'm confident is that those educators know that it's not only about what's on the walls. And I'm going to say what's on the walls speaks. There's no doubt everything speaks, but it's not just what's on the walls. It's how you communicate through your actions and through your empathy, the things that are spoken, unspoken. It's how you communicate what's on the wall that brings what's on the wall to life. And so if your wall says we are better together, then I'm confident that as an educator, you are living what's on your wall. And then you might have an opportunity to kind of just, as you're helping kids discover this moment where we have demonstrated we're better together, you just kind of wander over to that poster. You don't even have to really, talk to the poster and say, see, we're better together, but you can just kind of wander over to that poster. That's your anchor spot in your classroom when things are going really well, when you're demonstrating that you're working as a community. Is wander over there, and then they can see and hear and feel and know that you're walking the talk, and we are better together. It's not just on your wall. It's how we live in our classroom as a classroom family.
Brad, you are always so chock full of suggestions, and I just love learning alongside you, not only in Daily Drop-In, but just in life, because those small little strategies, like those small little choices that we can make, have such a huge impact on our effect that we can have on students and families and anything in between. So powerful. Equally powerful is how we can continue to be a learner, not only by listening to Daily Drop-In, hopefully participating in the comments when we're able to catch Daily Drop-In live, but also continuously being a learner at other elements of our day, whether it's communicating with colleagues or reflecting on questions with stakeholders. We're going to transition here into a segment that we have a special for Wednesdays, which is all about recommendations to continue to be learners. So we'll be right back. Brad, I know that the Daily Drop-In is kind of the same day today, but there's small little tweaks that every single day has, in addition to obviously having some wonderful faces that are able to join the Daily Drop-In. Brad, I love going live with you, so I'm so glad that you're going to be a part of every single Friday starting next week. But Wednesday's kind of fun because we get to recommend something that people can go and learn further, whether it's learn more about our theme for the week or learn more about really anything that people could go and kind of consume information and maybe interact with something new. This one that I'm going to recommend today is not necessarily on communication, but I think it could be, depending on how you interpret the content. I don't want it to be a stretch. I just felt like it was really relevant and important.
Sounds great. I'm eager to hear about it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. Brett, do you follow anything TED related, like TEDx or TED Education? There's a TED Education podcast that I really enjoy, and TED has a lot of different supports, not only in the presentations that they do, but also just in podcasts that they offer and everything else. And one of my favorite podcasts that I listen with TED is the one specifically on education. They just published, within the past few months, they just published an episode that says 3 myths about racism that keep the U.S. from progress. And it was a really interesting little talk. It's not too long. It's only 10 minutes. And what I liked about this podcast being 10 minutes is that it brought up 3 different elements of education and then discussed some gaps that we have in education related to race and ethnicity and diversity and everything else. And I felt that in these 10 minutes, while it didn't necessarily offer solutions, it did allow us to have some healthy dialogue around not only myths, but around a topic that cannot go away. Last summer there was a big movement, especially in the US, that we needed to do more than just be aware, but we needed to take action to welcome in all people into our communities. And I really enjoyed this 10-minute little segment brought by TED Education that allowed people to reflect on their practice. While, it may not be something that I would recommend to bring to your students in this format, I think it really allowed us to foster some dialogue and conversation. So in terms of things that we love, things we recommend, I thought that this really challenged my thinking and really allowed me to do some reflection. So I really recommend that. Like I said, last week we recommended a full book, and on Wednesdays it's always fun to recommend different resources. I really wanted to change it up this week and recommend something that was short and sweet and still extremely intentional. So this 10-minute podcast by TED Education hopefully is something that people check out and share your thoughts on after you listen up. Be good.
Ray, I'm curious. I haven't listened to that podcast yet, but I'm curious if there is maybe even a small, 20 to 30 second soundbite that you could extract. And depending on the age and stage of the students that you're working with, play that for them, and you can use that as a jumping off point for a discussion about their experiences. I mean, if part of welcoming kids back to school is anticipating what experiences they may have had in previous years and learning from them what works and what doesn't. And it's essential as educators, I believe, to welcome kids back with a clean slate and a full and free opportunity to become who they will be. Freedom from setbacks and mistakes and relationships that just didn't work out in the past. And this could be a way to open up conversation, not only about what they have experienced and what they're worried about and what they want to see different, but also a window, just a brief glimpse into the own inner work that you are doing as an educator to make sure that you are working with your kids to create that space where all feel welcome, respected, valued, and also have mechanisms in place in your classroom where if there are setbacks, if there are mistakes, if there are screw-ups on the part of the teacher or other kids, where someone's feeling diminished, left out, excluded, or discriminated against, then there are mechanisms to have a dialogue about that. And so that a little soundbite that could set up those kind of routines of dialogue. This is how we work in our classroom community. We discuss what's going on, we work through it, and we learn from it as well. So I'll look forward to checking that out, and I'll see if there's a little bit of a soundbite that I can extract or recommend that the teachers that I work with do.
Yeah, please do. I know that we'd love to hear from any of you who choose to take us up on a recommendation that you challenge your mind, challenge your thinking. Again, we'll be doing this every single Wednesday just to give you a little food for thought on other outside resources to be successful. Brad, I don't know about you and how you like to consume your learning, but as I've spoken very publicly about, there are books that I love, which is why last week I had a book recommendation that I feel very strongly about. But typically, I consume my information in an audio form. And so podcasts have really opened up a whole new world for me in terms of being a learner, because I'm able to listen to it, not only because that's my preferred medium, but also because I can do it in the car. I can do it on a walk with the dogs. I can listen while I'm cooking dinner. And so it really kind of opens up my learning experience. I personally use Apple Podcasts. I don't know if you don't have an iPhone and you have an Android. I know there's Google Podcasts. I know you can listen on Spotify. There's so many places to listen to podcasts, but obviously a big shout out to everybody a part of the Teach Better Team podcast network as well. There are like over 20 podcasts over at teachbetter.com/podcast that we have vetted those people. We believe in the work that they're doing. They're people that are furthering not only their missions that they believe in, but also their own experiences as learners. And we love being able to recommend those podcasts as well. If you are looking for your next learning experience, and after consuming that episode that we recommended today from TED Education, looking for more ways to learn. I know, Brad, you are a very active podcast member, so I love that you're a part of that community as well.
Thanks. I love being part of that community, and as a podcast creator, I'm also aware as a podcast consumer of the need to bring great ideas forward, and that's why I think your recommendation of the Teach Better Podcast Network as at least a jumping off point is amazing, because all of the podcasters are seeking to connect with other educators and other influencers that can make us better, and that can leave you after 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever time you have to devote, leave you with something actionable that you can take forward to your kids. Or I kind of like it too. I've been talking about Canvas and different visual arts things, but it's kind of like a tapestry, right? Like every podcast episode, whether it's the host or the guest, it's another thread of connection in our own professional learning journey. And then you just never know where those threads might lead. Like a guest that you listen to might lead you to his or her own podcast and a deeper dive, or a podcast you listen to might lead you to a book recommendation or a chapter recommendation, or like you said, a TEDx talk, TEDx video. But it's amazing. Just there's no wrong place to start with any of those podcasts, and then just follow where those threads lead. And then you're building up that repertoire of professional learning. And then the last strength of that is the ability to share what you're learning with people around you, whether it's family members, friends, colleagues, a note on your staff whiteboard or in your staff email conference about, hey, just check, if you've got 10 minutes, check out this worthwhile podcast, or check out this TED Talk. And something that school leaders can also do is to move things forward, is to provide those little bites, those little manageable bites of learning that they think will resonate, and just name the why. Why are you putting this out there? Why do you think it's a valuable listen or a valuable watch? And then finally welcome that feedback. And I always let people know, love to know your thoughts about that. And occasionally people will take you up on it and say, so glad that you recommended that. Let's have a discussion to further our understanding of it.
Brad, you are always, first of all, the best guest ever, because you bring things back to what we were talking about, that tie-in right there about communication. You threw in another suggestions on how our leadership can communicate to stakeholders and their staff. Power to you, Brad. You are such a professional. I'm so glad you were able to join our daily drop-in this morning. For all of you listening, don't forget, you can obviously catch any part of the daily drop-in where we are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. But also, obviously, when you go over to subscribe and hopefully rate and review Teach Better Talk podcast, because we're publishing at least 5 episodes a week over there to try and support you throughout whatever journey you are currently on towards your pursuit of better. I do want to give a shout out later this week. We have Holly Stewart joining us, and then we will end Friday with Dr. Neil Gupta, who's going to continue to emphasize our conversation on communication. The following week, we are really focusing on relationships, not only relationships with staff, but also students and parents and everything in between. So we're going to kind of take our goals that we've been setting and our communication suggestions and now build that into ideas for relationship building the following week. So we still have a lot in store for Daily Drop-In. Thank you for joining us every single morning, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern. Brad, I know we will see you not only in the comments, but again next week. So we are so thrilled to be able to continue that dialogue with you. Thank you for joining us today.
It's always a pleasure. I'm really, really looking forward to our continued conversations. And I always walk away from Daily Drop-In, whether I'm a participant or reviewer, I always walk away feeling that it was time well spent. And whether it's something new I've learned or something, just a change in my thinking or just the positive energy, I love what Daily Drop-In provides. So it's awesome to be a part of it, Ray. Thank you.
So fun. For everyone else, we want to cheers your last sip of coffee. I timed this so perfectly, Brad. I have just a sip every single time. I think I'm going to go pro. For all of you, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. We will see you again tomorrow morning. And we hope that you just continue to emphasize all the different things that educators are doing as we continue to amplify the voices of the incredible people supporting students. Thanks so much for all that you do. We'll see you soon. Thank you.